Hello and welcome to the RoRoShow. How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for having me on. It's a
Oh no,
pleasure.
it's a pleasure. I am such a big fan of your work and your Instagram. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on. Tell me, how did you get started? I love your photography work and I love your website as well. But I just want to know, how did you get started with it all?
How far do you want to go
Right
back?
from the beginning. I've got time. I've got time. What was your inspiration for getting into photography? Was it a hobby first, and then you kind of, you know, did more work with different people?
I think growing up at home, I think my dad, he just had a lot of visual stuff up. So there was always paintings, photographs. Like I think he was like the creative person in the family. So I think that's where like our house was the most colorful, had the most images up, and it still is like that. So I think that kind of had a big influence on me. And I was always like encouraged to be creative, which I guess isn't necessarily always the number one thing in a Punjabi or a Sikh household, like especially if you've come as like migrant, like parents have come as migrants from other countries. So I think I always wanted to study. I just never got that opportunity, or things didn't work out. And then if you can't do it in an academic way, then you kind of just, if you're creative, you have to do it. You have to do it by any means. So I think I used to work at Woolworths, and then I saved up to buy my first camera, I remember, and I would just take pictures just like with friends, nights out, used to go raving, just take the pictures. And then I think I kind of thought, okay, I can save up and get a nicer camera and then just take pictures. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just wanted to take pictures. And then I guess I kind of got older and was doing like some art stuff. And I thought, let me try and take pictures a bit more. And then I think one of my friends that I used to go uni with, he done photography like properly. And he goes, I said, I saw a picture on that he took, and I'm like, what did you take this on? This picture looks really different. He goes, I took it on like a 35mm film camera. And he goes, yeah, this is what it is. So I just bought one maybe like 8 to 8 years ago, and then I kind of just started taking that. I used to have it in my pocket, and I would just take pictures and capture like what life is in South London and just London in general. Then, after a while, you just think, okay, I'm taking pictures. What am I doing? What's the purpose? And then I kind of just thought, I went to a talk in Croydon. They have a group called Lenses of Croydon, and they get a photographer in every month. And there was two photographers that came. One was called Charlie Phillips, and he captured the community in Notting Hill. And then afterwards, I was like, I wonder where the pictures of our community is. Like, who captured us? It would be really cool to see. So I went looking for it, and I just couldn't find anything. And I think that kind of set me off to think, okay, we need to tell our own story. Like the things that maybe you see or that I've seen growing up, we kind of don't see it in photography form, or like our story isn't told. And there's always like this, like certain stories are being told by people that are maybe claiming to represent the community, but they kind of water it down or have different intentions. So I just thought, you know what, let's tell our story. I think it'll benefit the future, the current generation of young people, and just us as a community as a whole.
Yeah, so I wanted to go back. So you said you worked at Woolworths. What age were you working at Woolworths?
It's definitely 17, 18.
Yeah,
And I
and then
think I worked there for about 3, 4 years.
it was during that time is when you discovered photography, and you're like, oh, I want to, I really want to get into photography as you take pictures and just sort of explore the art form. But what was it? What was that at that time? What was it like that really brought you on to wanting to take pictures? Was there a particular moment, or was there a particular person that kind of inspired you at that time?
I think I always had this fascination about storytelling or documenting things. And then I think at the time I was raving a lot in like the grime and like dubstep stuff. And we were going out and just like finding out what the world is and experiencing different things, traveling a lot. So it was just more about capturing my story and like my story in London. But I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know, okay, this is how you compose it. I just thought, this is what I like the look of. So you just try to replicate that. But I don't think there was a particular person. If like maybe till late, I think later on, maybe
Yeah.
fast forward 5, 6 years on, I probably could say, okay, this was a bit more inspirational.
I feel like this is an overarching theme. Like a lot of creatives don't necessarily know why they got into something. They just wanted to do it at the time. They don't necessarily overthink it, and they just I guess maybe photography is such a great art form in telling stories. Have you ever thought about taking videos as well? Like, what was it about photography that you thought that is a good way to tell stories?
I think another thing about being a creative person is easy to get carried away and just think, okay, I want to make videos, I want to take pictures, I want to make music. And then I think I was doing painting at the time as well. And I just thought, you know what, it's actually impossible to do painting and photography and then other things. And I think just hearing other artists that have kind of gone through their journey, there's one thing that stands out for people that make it, that you have to give everything. You have to give everything to whatever you choose. And I just thought photography is the one thing that I can give everything to and focus my attention. So I just thought, yeah, I'll go with that. That's my strongest.
Do you think that photography is a skill that needs to be cultivated? Do you think that you need time and energy to, develop your craft? Or because everyone can take pictures these days, right? I've got a phone. Even 5 years old, there were phones that were really, really capable of taking pictures. But what do you think makes your pictures different and unique, or what can what needs to be cultivated to make a good photo?
So recently people message me, they ask me about cameras and like photography, and I don't really know what to say. Like I don't really care about cameras, but I think in terms of storytelling, so I learned to take pictures this summer, I would say, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but I think I just wanted to tell a story. So if you're telling a story that no one else is told, you've got a lot more scope to maybe capture it in your way. It will still be unique. But if you're taking a portrait or things that are just quite standard, then I guess you can just, I don't know this. What was the question again?
Yeah, so what makes a good photo? How do you, in terms of cultivating that skill to be a good photo? And you talk about storytelling and the power of photography of storytelling. Is it one photo or is it the collection of photos together, the portfolio that make the story? Like, I know you created this amazing book called Bind. What was your thought process in creating that?
So I think that's probably a good way to put it. Is I think if I'm telling a story, having lots of pictures works maybe better for me, but I know some people, they can capture something in a photograph. But I guess it depends on the type of photograph, what the person is trying to say, and the context. So I think it can vary, but I guess certain photos, they transcend like cultures and boundaries. It's just more about the emotion and the feeling of what you get in the image. Because I think, say with my book, I feel like it's not necessarily for just Punjabis and Sikhs or Indians. It's a human story that everyone relates to, because it's things that people are doing that everyone else does. They eat, they cultivate the land. There's family in there. There's children. They're just all human things, but they're done in a particular way to a particular group of people in a particular time. And that's kind of what it captures. It just goes up close and personal. And I think having sold the book now for maybe like 3/4 of a year, different people have bought it and they're like, oh yeah, I love this image, or I relate to this image. And they're from different backgrounds. So it's nice to see the humanity in that. But then an example of one of my I don't really have that many favorite photographers, but I like Alex Webb. So when I look at his picture, I'm just thinking, this can't be real. How can someone capture this one image with these layers, these colors, and like whatever's happening in it? And it's just like quite powerful. But that's his particular way of telling his story and capturing what he does. But it's so different to mine, but that's what I like. But I can take elements maybe of that and put it into my storytelling or how I capture an image.
So when you take pictures, say for this project, Bind, the book name, looking at rural Punjab and farmers, maybe you take 3 or 4 pictures and you choose one picture out of that 4 and you add it into the collection. What makes that picture, exclusive, that I want to put this in the book rather than I want to leave those out? Or do you is there you saying about as Alex Webb and how you're inspired, you like how he uses layers. Is there particular things that you like in a picture that you want to kind of keep within your book and the theme?
I think my personal thing is getting close to people. So that means being physically close, then also having a relationship that is close. Because when you take those pictures, you'll be closer. Like I could like literally just take a picture of your eye, like, or your hands, just like be really close. And I would feel like when people go through the book, they feel close to these people. Like you're really in their space. You're really close to them. They're not taken from a distance, if that makes sense. So I think from Alex Webb, I took more like he's quite good at layers and having different layers. So there's one or two pictures where I thought, okay, I can incorporate that. It makes sense. I don't have to go out of my way to do that. And then if I have to pick images, what I done was I printed all the images that I thought were good, like 1,000 images. And then I just put them on the floor in the living room, and you just start to like tell a story. So there might be like 10 pictures of Bubbe that look amazing, but I can't have 10 pictures of Bubbe because it's just like you don't want to be flicking through and just seeing old people. So you have to be selective and see, okay, what tells the story. And some images, they're not great, but there might be a landscape that stitches the story together in a scene. So you kind of use some weaker images, not even weaker images, but images that have a different purpose. So it gives you a sense of space, atmosphere, and surrounding, along with the people as well. And it also makes weaker images make stronger images stand out as well. So it's a good way to enhance certain other images.
It's almost like the storytelling on a macro level, so looking at them all together, but also on the micro level, so that particular picture. And you said about connection. So, when you do take pictures and portraits of people, do you have to have a sort of relationship and a communication with them first? A verbal or physical communication, or do you just take it and then maybe get to know them a bit more afterwards?
I think so I took all the pictures in the same bin, and at first, yeah, I do have a dialogue. You can have a dialogue through like body language. People give you permission to take pictures because they've seen you around, or they know what you're doing, or they'll ask you, so you explain to them what you're doing. So I always like to get permission first, but it depends. If it's a street photo and it's like something happening naturally and you just need to take that picture, then you take it. But obviously you have to make that judgment call depending on what's happening in the scene.
Yeah, I personally, because I like photography, I quite enjoy taking pictures, and I find the candid, street photography is such a cool, art form and like genre within itself. But it's so difficult to take pictures of people randomly without feeling a little bit kind of socially anxious. Do you find you have that same issue, or do you think asking permission is the best thing to do?
So one thing that I learned was maybe it's better not to be sneaky. And obviously, so there's that element, but then I think you're having a conversation with yourself as a human being, and you're thinking, why am I taking this picture? How am I interacting with the subject or the people within this image? How are they feeling? And what's my responsibility in this? And so these are the things you have to ask yourself. Why am I taking this picture? And you can afterwards communicate, I've taken this picture for this reason, whatever. So I think there's just like a lot to consider that the photographer should ask themselves. But I know some people, for them, it's just like the image is the image and that's all that matters. I think that's a very, like a Western, like a way to, that we're just going to take this. And it's probably easier if you go to poorer countries, you can just take the image. Like, what are they going to do to you? And I feel like that is something we can't do to our own people either.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, sometimes, when you take pictures, it's like, as you said, it's about connecting, right? It's finding that connection, understanding that connection. But sometimes it can also be just like you're observing something. You're taking yourself out of the image and you just want to capture what you think that is. But then by doing that, you're separating yourself from the picture in some ways. But the problem with that sometimes is that, you get people going to different countries and just taking pictures whenever they feel like it. So do you think that there is no right answer to it, but there is it depends on the photographer and how then their approach?
Yeah, I think it does depend on the photographer and the context of the situation. Obviously, there's people like I'm not sure if it was Susan Sontag, but I feel like they said the photographer always has a relationship with the photograph, even if you're observing from a perspective. But I think in general, a lot of photography is observed. So in that sense, what is the true story of what you're getting? Because I think that's maybe what you can then argue. But I feel like there's not enough of people telling their story from within. I feel like there's not enough of that, because I feel like that's when you see something completely different. But then you also see it from a perspective where you will be excluded from certain things. So for us in the book, there's certain things that we can only relate to because that's our culture. And I think that's okay. Like if there's a picture of them making roti. For someone that might be like, oh wow, okay, this is why we make roti, or it's like quite a comforting picture. But that feeling may only be communicated to us, if that makes sense. So I think there's layers to stories, and different people have access depending on what they know about that particular thing they're looking at. And I think sometimes a lot of the most well-known photographs or documentation is always from the outsider. So you're kind of seeing it from that one perspective. It's quite, I don't know, one-layered. It's not multi-dimensional, if that makes sense.
Is it important to create a style or to know your style, or not to overthink things? Because you're quoting many different types of photographers, and I wonder, you probably do a lot of research and learn about different people and how they take pictures. Do you think that's necessary for you to sort of learn how you want to take your pictures? Do you need to do some research to become a good photographer?
So I feel, if I'm being honest, I feel like I don't really like that many photographers, but one thing I do kind of look at is more the theory behind it and the practice of photography. For me, I just wanted to tell this story, and I just thought if I need to take an image in a particular way, I might go and find how I can do that. But I always wanted to make sure I tell the story in a particular way, because I feel like making the book it's kind of like a political act, even if it's not political, if that makes sense. So I made the book myself, funded it, marketed it. Basically, there's no one to help me. I have no access to anything. So then I thought, if I do try to go out, I'm going to waste all this energy. I've got to compromise. I've got to explain to people, even from with our own community, what I'm doing, and they might not like it. And then I'm telling a story, and in the images, I'm including people that get left out of Punjabi society anyway. So there's so many layers to it that it just becomes this political thing. That even including people of a certain caste or religion and things like this, people will see all these things, but I think it will take time for it to kind of make sense.
Is there a lot of scrutiny with what your latest project? Did you find that there's a lot of scrutiny and that's kind of hindered you in your development in the process?
To be honest, I've not had anything negative, but I knew that the hardest thing would be to just to actually make the project, to actually get it together. Sometimes as a creative person, you have the vision. Like I always think, if I can see the end product, like it's ready, it's basically made. Like if I can see it, it's done. Now I just need to go and do it. And I think I could see that. But trying to explain those things to people can be difficult, especially people that are not creative. So some people said, why is there not captions in the book? I knew in my mind, I'm not going to include a caption. You have to make up, like in your mind, you should go through the images and feel what you think is going on. You don't always have to have the answers. And I think maybe when people do go through the book, they realize they don't need those captions. Because if you're feeling something, why do I need to tell you this girl is with her granddad? Like you can see that there's that emotion there on the page.
Yeah, so it's kind of like how in music sometimes people want to know what the lyrics mean, but sometimes the artists don't necessarily want to explain what it means because they want people to interpret it how they want to. Do you think it's the same kind of thing for you? You want people to look at the picture and you obviously thought about it and wanted to take a picture for a particular reason, but their reason for liking it should be different or could be different.
I feel like maybe they've been given a chance to experience something different. So I think that people probably have been pleasantly surprised that, okay, there's an introduction. The introduction is 1,000 words in English and Punjabi. It tells you everything you need to know. And then you're like on this journey through the book looking. But I think what's happened is people have asked their parents, their grandparents, or told their children. So it's forced people to have those conversations. So it's become like an intergenerational experience. If it was written in there, they might not have rang their grandma or grandparents. Oh, what's happening here? Was it like this when you were growing up? Or it's just forcing people to have more dialogue.
So you think it's opened up the conversation?
Yeah, that's based on like the messages that I got. Oh, I bought this for my dad. Oh, I've lent this to my brother. I bought this for my grandparents, or when they came over, we've had these conversations. It brought back so many memories. I didn't know where my family were from. Some people are like mixed heritage. They're half Punjabi, so they're just like, they've never had that chance to go. So it just opens up a lot of different avenues.
So when you created the book, did you do some research? Were there other different people that were doing similar types of things, going into rural Punjab and taking pictures? Do you think that people neglect those regions?
Yeah, so I went to look for what I made. I was looking for the book that I made because I thought, okay, there must be pictures of Bind. Like Bind is so famous. Like it's not even just famous in Punjab, it's just famous in Indian culture, the Bind. But then I realized that no one's really capturing the Bind as it is.
Why do you think that is?
So this sounds silly, but people that live in cities in Punjab, they don't go to the Bind. The Bind is like a very like working class, like low, like thing that you're not going to go to unless you're involved in it. And some of the things that I saw from people from our community that go, they always take these pretty pictures and things. And I'm just like, I've been going since I was a baby. And I'm like, I never see the things that I see. And it's just like, I think it's just that thing where like there's people that are of like a certain caste, they don't mix with like the people that are now just in the Bind either. So like you just don't get to go and explore. So I just thought, let me capture that and show what it's really like. So yeah, why it's not captured, I don't know. I feel like there's probably multiple reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you felt like doing this project was like a political act. I'm just wondering, was there more to it? You thought this is a story that isn't being told, and I want to open up that dialogue and conversation and represent these individuals.
I think, for example, obviously, a lot of these people, they don't have a voice. So especially if they're laborers and they're just working there, like just lack of social mobility, lack of access to education, information. I feel like they have a lot of good things that if they had a better level of education, they could really, really thrive. There's also like, say, colorism. A lot of the people are darker. Like you always see all the Punjabis are really light. Like the actors, actresses, like even people that we see in just general media, like they're always quite light. But a lot of the people here are really dark. Like this. That's what they look like and that's who they are. So it's just having these images of these people representing Punjab is quite powerful, I guess.
Yeah, I also wanted to learn about your technical setup. So when you were there in taking pictures, you said you're obviously a fan of 35mm. What made you want to go with that type of style and aesthetic?
So I went, I think I went in 2015 and I just took a roll with me. Actually, what did I? Yeah, so I took some cheap film because I couldn't really afford it. It's like, this is really expensive. I think we went to Leh Ladakh, which is up in the mountains. So I took like 4 rolls there, which was quite a lot for me at the time. And then I bought some nice Kodak film and I'm like, I'll take some portraits in the bin. It'll be nice. And when I came back and I saw the pictures that I took on the Kodak, I was just like, oh my God, like, is this like the pictures that I can take using this camera and film? And I thought, like, you don't need to edit anything. The feeling of like the colors, the earthy colors that you get, it's like being there. And that kind of triggered something to me to be like, okay, I can create something of quality that can tell the story in a beautiful way. Because I think sometimes taking beautiful pictures is easier than telling a story. And I was like, okay, I can tell the story. I knew I could tell the story, but I'm like, now I can take the beautiful picture as well.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, I just shot the whole book on a point and shoot.
Oh, really interesting.
So for some photographers, that might sound frustrating because they invest in camera equipment. I just slide my camera open and I just take the picture. So
yeah, and sometimes that's quite good because you don't have to, again, get into the technical side of things too much and, you know, expose in a particular way. You're there, you take the picture, and there's not much thought within that process.
I think having used that camera for maybe 2-3 years, I realized how different film, so 400 ISO and 160 ISO, how they would come out and what types of light they would work, and the depth of field in the camera. So I was just comfortable. I knew how the camera worked. So I was just kind of like able to take pictures. It made me less invasive. So people would just see this small camera. You can't see the pictures after I've taken it. Like, I can move around, and it gives me more access, and I'm less threatening to people as well.
I've definitely noticed in the last couple of years a revival in 35mm. And do you think it's going to stay for a while? Do you think that you can't capture the same type of feel and textures that you can do in digital?
So if I'm being honest, I'm not like a massive expert on editing, like even digital or film, but I feel like I just like the way it looked. I think, is it here to stay? I think it is here to stay because the price of some of these cameras, since I've bought them, is just going through the roof. It's actually crazy. I think you can edit the pictures to look like they're on film if you want. I don't really have to do much editing afterwards. So it's kind of like a lazy thing as well, that I don't really edit my pictures. So once I get them, I'm either happy with them or I'm not. And if there is a picture that I need to maybe change the exposure on, I'll do that, and that's about it.
So your editing is quite limited. You don't necessarily go into that field too much. You just want to concentrate more on taking the picture and you know, being in the moment, and that's it.
Yeah. So it's more the editing of maybe telling the story. Okay, I'm going to share this series. Which images go? And if I need to change something, like if I really like the image, I will just slightly change something.
It's quite interesting because I use a Canon 350D, which is like quite an old DSLR. I mean, it's not that old, but it's 2003, I guess you could say, 20 years, you know, around 20 years. It's pretty old, but it still takes amazing pictures. But people are still buying cameras now that are, you know, just come out in the last year or so. Do you think that, you know, there's no need to keep buying new cameras, or do you think it's really just the people can take pictures with cameras that are like 40, 50 years old? Is it really that important?
So I think if I was maybe a professional photographer and it was my job, I feel like I probably would want a new camera, because especially if you're doing like something like a wedding, you need to capture. It's quite important that you capture the images as they're happening and they're clear. So like, for example, like the big DSLRs, like they're now mirrorless, so the cameras are smaller. So I think why not have a smaller, like if it takes the same pictures and better pictures, you don't need a big camera anymore. You can just have a smaller version. But I think it just depends on what you want to use them for. But having said that, I can probably say to you that most people don't know that people that bought the book, they probably don't realize that it's shot on film and they don't care. That's probably 90% of people as well.
Yeah, I find photographers, we can be quite technical. We love the different types of film, the stock, and maybe actually just going back to basics and taking a good composed, world exposed picture is the most important thing. But yeah, you're talking about your job, and I wanted to go into a bit more detail there. So, you're not a full-time photographer then? You do other things on the side?
Yeah, I think people think I am a full-time photographer with the amount of stuff I put out and the way I work. But I do actually have a full-time job, so I kind of work in the digital, like online world, doing marketing and social media and stuff. But I feel like my job allows me to do what I want to photograph, if that makes sense. So I think without my actual job, I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
Yeah, it's almost like, as you said, you're independent in making this and doing this project. You have to be a business person. You've got to be like an entrepreneur to be creative, because you have to go through the process of marketing, and productizing and finding your right demographic and all that kind of thing. Do you think sometimes that, I don't think all creatives have that talent to do that. Do you think that's helped you with you selling this book?
Yeah, I think what I done when I made the book, I was like, whatever I do, I felt like it was a responsibility. So I was like, I have to just go out all guns blazing. Like, it has to be the best quality. Like, everything has to be on point. So I kind of thought, okay, how much is it going to cost me to make this? And I thought, okay, it's going to take me like a year and a half or 2 years to save up to pay for this. And then I calculated the cost. You have like a spreadsheet. And in that time, you think, how can I market it? Who's going to help me? And yeah, you do have to, like, it was basically after the books arrive, you're like, okay, yeah, I've made the book, it's done. Then you have 70 boxes, 700 books sitting in your house, and you have to sell them. Yeah. Now you're like, oh my God, okay, now I have to do this other thing. So you kind of learn a lot about how to sell books, marketing, how to do online marketing using influencers. But I think all the work over the years with the community helped a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what would you want to say to those creatives that want to make art? Would you say that it's really challenging and you wouldn't really know what you want to do and think about the whole overall process?
For me, the main thing was what I'm creating, does it have value to it? And is it something that will... I think that the value is, does it tell us something new, something different? What does it give us access to? When you buy it and you hold it in your hand, you think, okay, I've spent 25, 30 pounds. Is that worth 25, 30 pounds? Because most of the time I've bought stuff and I'm like, this is awful. There's like so much hype. But I feel like when people hold it, it weighs like it's 30 pounds. It feels like it's 30 pounds. Then they open it and they may be a bit overwhelmed. Like, I wanted people to feel emotional and like feel something. So I think you need to say to yourself, like, why am I doing this? And is it worth it? And who needs to see this? Because that's, I think, where the real value lies. Because if you want to make something to make money, then I think what you're trying to make may be compromised to some extent.
So sometimes not always thinking about the what, but thinking about the why you're doing it is quite important.
Yeah, because sometimes people are like, oh, I've done this amazing thing, but they don't maybe understand why it's not being received. It could be something small as that you've just shown it to the wrong people. That's it. So that means you don't have an understanding of who you made it for, I guess.
So is that for you the most important thing? If it has value and it actually has an impact, and it creates an emotional response, that's the most vital thing in actually creating meaning behind the project.
So I think what was quite powerful is, do you know an author called Toni Morrison?
No, but maybe I'll put a link below so I'll check it out and people can check it out.
So I feel like she's like an amazing woman, like like a great thinker and a great person. So she was writing stories about the Black experience, but she wrote them for her people and telling her story. And that's why they became so powerful and like bestsellers around the world. But she didn't really compromise. She told her story to her audience. And that's why it connected so well, because she wasn't really influenced by too many outer things. She just told this story as purely as she could, to whatever that means. And I think that made me realize, you know what, tell your story to your people and it will connect. I'm not trying to please everyone. I don't really like care like if it wins an award or not.
So do you think that, you actually, when in terms of your marketing, you concentrated on maybe the Punjabis and other, maybe Asians and South Asians? Did you try to push towards that market?
To be honest, I don't even think other South Asians care. Like that's just the reality of it. Like we don't go picking up a book on Bangladesh or whatever. Like it's cool, you can relate to it, but in reality, I genuinely think people just want their own, like their access to their own cultures. Plus, we don't really have that. We have pictures, but there's always like, let's go take 100 pictures of Nahangs in Amritsar. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Like it's not like those pictures are cool, but what do they say about anything or to anyone? Like it's.
Yeah, it's quite. To me personally, it is a little bit frustrating because I sometimes feel that people really stick with their own group. They don't necessarily want to learn about Bangladeshis or what's going on in the south of India. Do you think that at the moment, with current protests that are going on, there's a lot of separation and segregation in India, or do you think about that?
I think one thing maybe people struggle with here is I think people have to admit they don't know what it's like to grow up there and how people feel. So a person that's there, the way they see what is India and how they connect to other people around them is different to us. Because we're like, okay, we know about Punjab, we know about Sikhi and stuff. But unless you've had a chance to travel or you've got connections to other parts, you don't really know about India because it's such a big, complex place. So for me, I can only tell the bit that I know about. And then I think afterwards, I think it just depends on how people connect and how we connect to other Asians as well.
So do you think you have a duty as an artist to tell these stories? That gives you the motivation to kind of do it, I guess. And
I guess imagine if I was like, I'm just going to make a book in Dhaka in Bangladesh. I was like, how am I going to, I can go there and I can take these amazing pictures. But then I'll come back and I could sell it and people would love it. But what does that mean? I've just made some money. But do I know anything about those people? Do I have a connection to them? I don't have any connection to them. So I would rather someone like me told that story over there from their side.
Yeah. It's almost like photography can be a little bit anthropological. Like, you study people. It's a study of people. And, I guess because you went there and you spent time there and you know that kind of crowd and community, you can tell a different kind of story or with a particular type of depth. So do you think that theme is going to stay for a while then? Do you think that representing Punjabis and South Asians, do you want to concentrate on that, or are you trying to diversify? Are you working on any different projects?
So for me, initially, all my projects usually involve something I am part of. So like things in South London that I grew up with, or just parts of London culture that I'm involved in. And I thought, let me just expand that to like being Punjabi and Sikh and telling that story. So I just had a point, but I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, so don't worry, I'm sure it'll come back to you. It's fine. But so on your website, for example, there are many different portraits of South, Punjabis. You do fashion. You obviously got this book. It seems to me that there's this kind of Punjabi theme there, but I just wonder if maybe you want to diversify and move out of that, or do you want to concentrate and learn more and represent that crowd?
So I think. So some of the stuff I'm working on, like I've started a series here in my local area, like in the park. It's like I just go there and I'm like, how can so many people from different parts of the world just be in one place? But that's what I've seen. So like I'm capturing that. I've captured like some dubstep and grime stuff when I was younger. But I've thought about what you said, like all this stuff I'm capturing. But then I thought, you know what? This is actually a metaphor for every community, because every community has its stereotypes, but within that, everyone's a human being and doing different things. So I've just remembered my point based on that. So if you go through all these Instagram pages online, Brown History, etc., you see these old pictures being posted. So what I do, I just go and see who's taking the picture. It's never a Punjabi person. It's never anyone from our community. And all we have from those images is another person's view of us. And that's being fed down to the younger people. Then that creates an image of who we are. But is that what we were? We done other things, but they're all in our family albums. Or maybe they just chose not to get a brown person to capture that. So I think that's like it's not about, oh, you have to be Punjabi. Like, anyone can take the pictures. All the pictures. I think we're all grateful for pictures that have been taken. But I just think it's more about understanding what story are you being told and what perspective, because that has an outcome. So for me now, I'm trying to be quite broad and inclusive of who so many people identify as Punjabi or Sikh, but I'm not there to maybe leave people out. I'm just going to tell the story because that's the story and the conversation that we have. So I put all these things in one place that maybe we just don't see them. You could have Guru Sikhs and Nahangs, but then I could have like someone DJing in a club. It's like the spectrum of who we are is the same spectrum for every group of people. And maybe just try and, rather than going out there and let me research this community and take pictures of them, I can use what I know and tell a story that is also the same for everybody else.
What would you say to a lot of, I feel with Punjabis, we like to go down the academic route. There's lots of lawyers, doctors, which is amazing. And that's being, I guess, a creative in their own light and bringing things to a service to humanity. But would you say that being a creative and doing things like photography is really important and vital to the community?
Yeah, I think it is. I think we need our music, we need arts. You need that outlet and that emotion to connect to. I think there's always a reason for all those stereotypes of why someone should, why people are expected to be doctors and lawyers. But I think if you look back, things probably make sense. Some of the people that came here first were quite privileged within their society. They had access to higher education. They probably went to boarding school. These are all things that are most people don't know. It's not always the victim. So that generation is completely different to the generation that maybe is coming now from the Bind. They might not expect to be a doctor. They might want to be a builder. Someone might become a musician. So I think there's also the different aspects of class and other intersects within our community that makes us different. And I think that's why, I don't know, I don't think there is that one story. But yeah, we do need music and pictures and art. And I think it's different based on you might make some different music compared to somebody that's come from Punjab. They might only think they can make something with a hip hop beat on it and not have a band. Why not? You can sing in Punjabi over anything. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. But I guess one of the big challenges of making art and doing music or any creative types of projects is that it's expensive to do, and it doesn't really pay too well. So do you think that it's possible to be a full-time artist? Do you think there will be at any time an opportunity for yourself to just go into photography full-time?
Personally, I don't see how I could do that. I'll be honest with you, unless I start taking wedding pictures, which I don't want to do.
No, nobody does.
Yeah,
it's very hard.
I don't really know how I could be.
Even
though I've sold a book, it's not really going to make me money selling a book.
Is that your desire, though? Do you really want to make this a full-time career, or are you sort of you recognize that it's probably very unlikely that could happen?
I think if it's possible, I would. But what I can do is just keep working towards what I want to do and what I want to put out. And if that leads me in that direction, then obviously it would be amazing to just take pictures all the time. That would be the coolest job ever.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like I've spoken to a couple other creatives, and it always seems like you need to do it. You want to do it. It's not about money. It's about just this will to do it. But it's unfortunate that people that have that creative mindset and want to make art, they have to be a entrepreneur and a business person. Do you think that there are more kind of collectives coming together and people helping each other out?
So with the collective thing, before I kind of like embarked on the whole photography thing, I was bringing together a group of artists here in South London, in Croydon, and we all came together as like, say, working class people from different backgrounds because we didn't have access to art school or exhibitions and anything. So we've kind of came together. We done our own party. They were basically parties. So we had an exhibition. We had poets, DJs, film screenings, just like creatives, and everyone would come. People that have never been to a show or read a poem, they'd be like, "We read a poem today." Like that wouldn't have happened, and it became this family over 2-3 years. And everyone was allowed. Everyone was welcome to the shows. People of all different backgrounds or whatever, and people were meeting that would never meet. So many people met Punjabis because of me, or Sikhs. They're like, wow. Then you have people from Afro-Caribbean, African backgrounds. You have English people, and it's just like this coming together of people. And I think from that, the value was that it improved everyone's life. And they kind of like set them off to be an artist like for themselves, or some of them are now doing it and they're selling paintings. So it's kind of that coming together. It also unites people, gives them a sense of belonging, but it also gives them a purpose for their art and why they're doing it. Imagine you've never had a show and you've all come together and you've put on a show and people come and admire your work. That does something to you as a human being. So I think that's something that you can take, and I feel like maybe we can do that in our community as well. I feel like there's so much space for that.
Are there groups like that? Do they exist?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't think so. I've not heard of them, or sometimes they don't understand. I think it's something's a little bit more difficult for us if it makes sense. So we kind of we're not part of one culture, we're part of multiple cultures. And I think within that, different people experience being Punjabi and Sikh differently. But then we have a lot more British influence in us as well. So this is about bringing all of that together and seeing how you can unite people. Because if you're going to do it in that context, you have to be aware of all the differences. And that's why it's harder.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier before we started about how you've noticed on your Instagram you get a lot of more direct messages and people wanting to contact you about different projects. Do you think that your latest project, Bind, has allowed people to want to get to know who you are and want to connect with you?
I think it's maybe my other work that I just post. So something that I realized when I was doing like the art collective stuff and paintings, I'd done a series of paintings called Being British, and everyone in those paintings was from different cultures that was in my environment, and none of the people were white in those pictures, but their faces were left white. And during the exhibition, people, especially younger people, were coming up and saying, we really like this picture, like paintings, like we really relate to them. Can you explain to us why? So it's just that I think that battle of who we are, where do we belong, it kind of resonated with people. And that's when I realized, hold on, if you think something and you can express that, people will be attracted to it. So I think people are attracted to those images that I'm capturing of our experience within Britain. And it's like, hold on, okay, these guys just love BMWs. Like they're just Asian boys that like cars. Like they're all lovely guys. And it's like, hold on, that's really cool. We're included in this story. Then you've got someone that just like there's people that are queer and like they're included in the story that I'm capturing. Then you just got like so many different people, and you're like, hold on, okay, fine. I can go to the Gurdwara. I can do all these things. I don't have to just give up stuff and be boxed into this thing. And I think that's what is appealing to people, especially like us, because I never saw that growing up. You kind of like you got to pick this side or that side. Now we don't have to pick. We're going to be taking what we want.
Exactly. And it's always, we're all changing. And I think, as you said about stereotypes, people maybe think Punjabis are a particular way, but there's so many different types of Punjabis, and there's many different countries they live in as well, not just in Punjab itself. But it's interesting because I really like your photography and the way that you tell stories. Do you think that you're gonna use these these new stories about diversity in Punjabis and put them into different collections? Have you got other projects that you're thinking about doing?
I think it would be nice to tell that story. And I think for now, I feel like I've not captured what I want to show. I feel like it's an ongoing thing. So I will just carry on meeting people like yourself and like everyone else that's connected to that, because it kind of just snowballs. You meet people and it snowballs. So I think it's just I need to spend more time looking for different stories and different people. We still haven't taken pictures.
I
guess we spoke like 2 years ago.
I know, but lockdown's been difficult for that, man. I mean, the last year. I mean, obviously the year before that, I've got no excuses for that. But since March, it's been so difficult, and I guess being creative and doing creative projects have been more challenging. But do you think that people are do you think lockdown has been challenging for you, and or do you think that it's given you time to think about this stuff a bit more?
I think this third lockdown has been the hardest. So it's dark. Like I'm just stuck inside doing work. You can't really see anyone. I think I even had like the book to like lean on and like go out. And in the summer we could go out and take pictures and meet people. So I think this time it's been harder, but I think you kind of need a break. I've been doing more things like this, like speaking to people and just chatting, getting to know more people. So when we do go back to whatever our new reality is, we can, I guess, carry on creating.
Do you think you've changed as well, your inspirations and what you want to take pictures about? Has that been in the last couple of months where that, you found a particular theme that you want to concentrate on?
I just think to still tell our story with more depth and more broadness, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to what you're talking about on the local level, people coming together and sort of creating a group. I feel like maybe that's what we need as a Punjabi community. We need some creative collectives to come together and help each other out. Maybe because we're so siloed and independent in what we do, it prevents us from linking up and creating different things and diversifying even a bit more. Do you agree? Do you think that's the solution? Do you think that we need to come together a bit more as a community?
Actually, you know what? So that is something I have thought of. I think I'm not sure if everyone needs it, but I think we need it, and there's quite a few other people that need it, and there's also a group of people that don't know they need it, but they need it. If that makes sense. I know they're looking for this of us maybe coming together, and it should be fun. It should be inclusive, and we can help each other. And I think on a smaller level, I've kind of already seen that with a lot of the people that I photograph. Like everyone is connected to each other. Like everyone helps each other. We've made music videos, we've done shoots, but people are doing their own things from that. They can take like the stuff we've done together, and they're now doing modeling. They're doing their own music. So everyone can participate and feel like they belong and go and do their thing. And I feel like that's just around the corner. I just need a venue. Just give me a venue and I'll sort it out.
Yeah. And do you think that, you obviously use social media and you use your Instagram quite a lot and you've got loads of followers because they all love what you do. Do you think that you're going to concentrate on using social media? I know a lot of people are kind of, with lockdown, starting to not like social media as much. And it's quite nice and refreshing how you created a photo book. Do you think that there is, an importance to not necessarily always put your pictures on Instagram, but use different types of mediums to tell your story?
Yeah, so you probably noticed that none of the pictures from the book are on Instagram. So people had to buy the book. I feel like without Instagram, I don't know if I wouldn't have made the book, because how would I have access to an audience? So I think you just have to repurpose how you use social media, what you put out. I think it changes every year. So it's constantly changing. I think it's that thing where if you make something, you want people to hear it, see it, read it. So you do have to kind of work on that. And we're in a different place now where our niche can come to us, if that makes sense. Because imagine in the olden days, you'd have to network and it depended on like the gatekeepers to let you in. Now you can like go past that. I think part of my inspiration was that growing up in London, we have this culture, like all this music that's come out of here. No one's asked to make it. They've just gone out and made it, like grime, garage, jungle, UK garage, funky, like all of that, like the rave culture. Then it's all just come from this place where like these people have just gone out and made their own culture. They have their own industry. You just go and do it yourself. Like, you don't need permission to create art and share it.
Do you think there's a particular like number of ingredients that you need to create art? That you talked about people DIY and doing it themselves. Do you need to have some people talk about how they need adversity in their life as well to tell a story. Do you think that there's certain kind of attributes that make good art?
I think it depends on each person. I think some people just need to make the art to let something out. So that whatever's inside them, they need to let it out. And that's really it. Some people do it as like just a practice. Some people do need to do it to communicate their ideas, to sell something. Some people just see it as a job. I make this thing and I sell it. So I just think it depends on the person and what they want to do. But it is a journey. It's definitely a journey.
Yeah. So it's been amazing talking to you, by the way. I really enjoyed that conversation. There's two questions I wanted to ask you. One, what is your long-term aspiration? And secondly, what is your advice to people that really want to start out and make art? What would you say that they need to do?
So the first question, I think I just want to, if I can carry on what I'm doing right now, I feel like I'm in quite a good space and I'm progressing quite well. So hopefully tell more of our story and make it relatable for other people. And also to do projects outside of that, because I think some of those projects are quite powerful and they have a lot of substance. So hopefully that's something I can do over the next 5 or so years. And in terms of people creating stuff, I think I'm just going to say the same thing. Like, make sure you enjoy it. Make sure it's fun, because otherwise there's not really any point doing it. And just maybe ask yourself, why am I doing it? And trust in the process. I think that's the hardest thing to do, is trust the process, because it's not something you can see or necessarily kind of feel, but you have to go through certain things to get to the end goal.
Yeah. There's multiple hoops and you can't necessarily see the last one. That's quite nice. And sorry, last question.
No, go for it.
Where could we find more information about you and your work? So where would you want to point people towards?
Instagram. So Instagram is at Hark1karan. So that's my artist name. That's what I kind of use. And the website is the same. Website's a bit more like a portfolio. So yeah, these are the things I was going to say. Like, before I launched the book, I changed my blog into a portfolio. It's just some of those things you have to do to make an about section. I didn't really want to write about myself, but I done it. Like, you kind of do things because you feel like, okay, people are going to access me. You do need to give them something.
Yeah,
and it'll benefit you.
Yeah, I love your blog on your website as well. And what is your website? Sorry,
sorry, it's www.hark1karan.com. So it's the same as my Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, everyone need to check out his blog because it is really, really, really cool. And if people want to get in touch with you in terms of they want to like collaborate with you, what would you say the best route is to do that?
You can message me on Instagram or Facebook, not Facebook, the website. Yeah, so the website and Instagram. But you can find me on Twitter as well, but that's just a bit more fun. Yeah, because I don't really see myself as a proper artist. I just you kind of have to a little bit, if younger people are starting to follow you or other people, you just kind of take care more in what you put out, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like you haven't got control as to what people are going to label you eventually as, and so you have to sort of tailor what you create, which is an endless process.
I think if you from the start set out to like go out as how you want to be perceived, you kind of have less to worry about, if that makes sense. Because there's a lot of people, they'll say one thing, but then their behavior is different. Whereas I get some freedom because I'm like just myself. So I think people kind of accept you, or they know what to expect, or they just don't understand you, which is probably the best thing.
Yeah, it's almost like the easiest thing to do is just be totally authentic and put yourself out there. And
Yeah.
just try to be yourself, and hopefully people resonate with that. But it's not necessarily your goal to resonate. It's just put yourself out there. Really, that's quite nice. But as I
I
said,
had some questions for you.
oh yeah, go ahead,
If we've got
please.
time.
No,
So,
absolutely.
so in terms of you, obviously you guys are in a band, right?
Yeah.
So when you approached me, I thought, oh, this is really cool. Like, okay, I probably asked you, like, are you Punjabi, whatever, just if it fits with my work, so we could work together. What have you found being like maybe boundaries for you to get out there, or things that you faced?
Well, I think it's kind of what you said before about how you kind of just want to create. And, I started playing guitar since I was, year 7 or year 8 in school, 12 or 11, 12 years old. And I loved it. And I don't know, I don't think people even like my music. I don't think there's many people that really resonate with my sound. But I've always played, and we created we did this project, and I thought, look, it'd be really nice to market it, and I really liked your Instagram and your pictures. I thought, this guy is so good. It'd be amazing if you can take some pictures. And I think also maybe we did think, or I thought, that if your demographic is Punjabi, maybe it will bring in that particular audience as well to listen and to that particular project. Even though they may not resonate with it, at least people know that this is something that's going on. It's almost like you're this web because you've got people that follow you that are from that particular region, or around the world, that are a particular race or had that particular kind of genetics. You would think that hopefully you kind of being part of the project would bring those people in.
So I'm just gonna assume, obviously you set out to make the best music you can, right? That's your number one aim, isn't it? To make the best song.
Absolutely. And I think this is why I asked you about the business side of things, because, I love creating things and making things. And I was talking to my dad about this a couple of hours ago. He is very creative, makes podcasts. I think you know him as well.
Yeah.
on the charity bike ride. And he's like, every week he's creating podcasts and creating new things. And, I ask him, why does he want to do it? What is the need to do it? And he doesn't really have like a really good answer. I think it's just because he wants to, right? And so, yeah, I get stuck in the process of making this project and creating something that resonates with me, but not necessarily thinking about how I'm going to market it or who's going to listen to it, which I find quite challenging.
So I think one thing that I could probably say is, for me, I thought I'd have to accept every channel. So I've done like online talks with just photography groups, and no one's Punjabi, but it's fine because they all love it and they were the most engaged and they had the biggest turnout. So just try every channel. Like, you've approached me for a podcast. I kind of really didn't ask you too much. Like, who's it going to? How much have you done? How many? I just thought, okay, I know you. It's cool. Like, let me just come on here and talk, because it's something I enjoy. Just go for all the avenues. Plus, like one thing your dad is probably doing is, because he's out there so much, he's creating more possibilities for himself, if that makes sense. And the thing is, I didn't know who I was going to meet when I started this journey. That's why it's crazy. So I kind of just trust that process now. Just go out there and you have to make your own luck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the motivations for starting this webcast podcast. I really, I feel like I've connected with you. I've learned so much about you. And these kind of long conversations are a great tool to learn about a particular character. And it's not just about Punjabi people and this community, but it's diverse. It really, and also I think people think being creative is making art and doing photography, video, etc. But there are some people, even scientists that I know, are just doing such incredible things and thinking outside the box. And sometimes giving them a voice, even though it's not necessarily considered to be that cool. Hopefully, people will be attracted to that and want to do things.
Because you kind of, obviously, you listen to so many different so much different music. You have so much input of like the creative world, and it's from literally such a broad range of people. But you can still be who you are, right, and be inspired by that. Because I am.
Yeah, and I think maybe this is maybe a similar trait of what creatives have. It's just that they are so open and they want to explore and connect with people. Either it's through like different textures and music, music and different types of forms of art, or it's just a conversation. But I think being open. I think lockdown has been challenging to do that. I haven't, as I said, we were trying to do a event together. It's been 2 years and we haven't been able to do it. But I think lockdown has caused that challenge, and I think I feel with me, social media, I feel I don't like it as much as I used to. I feel like I can't really connect with people as much as I could do. It's not the best way of doing it. I don't know if you find that too.
I do agree that I think when I post a picture, I'm just sensing that people don't really want to see it at the moment. And even me, I don't really feel like I need to put it out, because I just feel like there's something else going on in this world that people are going through. So you do feel that connection. If it's true or not, I don't know. But yeah, I think we are kind of, I think, so the other day my friend rang me. He makes suits. He's a Punjabi guy, and he runs a bespoke suit company called Hark1karan. And he just rang me. He goes, I know you're a creative person. Just wanted to see how you're doing, because it's tough with not being able to create and meet people, because we need an outlet. Yeah. So I think it is difficult. I don't know what I can say. I think we probably just need to get into a routine and break the habit of being in that routine, if that makes sense.
I think so. Yeah, it's so easy to be stuck in your day-to-day jobs and just sitting in front of a computer and working and scrolling through your Instagram feed. But I think that variety is quite important. Doing different projects and meeting different people just makes things interesting, and it brings new meaning into your life.
I think for us, maybe I think there was that 2 or 3 weeks I just didn't really speak to that many people, and I think maybe it kind of just built up, and I thought, I need to speak to people. And I think that's what's maybe helped me, is just to make more of an effort to do the video calls, or just pick up the phone or WhatsApp or something. And I feel like that's just made a huge difference. Maybe that's what we need.
I think so. But, I must say, when the first lockdown happened, I was using Zoom quite a lot. And I think everyone got to a saturation point where they didn't like using Zoom. I don't know if it's because of the technology or whatever it is, but it's not the same as physically meeting people and connecting. Do you think?
Yeah, I think we're going through something that's not natural for us. And the consequences of that, I don't think we realize yet, or how everyone's feeling.
Yeah, it's almost like the human collective, like the human consciousness is sort of shifting. Do you ever think about that? Do you think that there's going to be a big change after this lockdown and people go out? Do you reckon there'll be like a mass party or something like that happened in this accountant culture, like in the 60s?
I think things have changed. When you look back and you're like, oh, where did this a particular tradition come from? Oh yeah, back in 2020 there was this pandemic, and ever since then no one works from home. Everyone works from home. It's just weird things like that. And I think there'll probably be 1 year of socializing, because you need a whole season. You need winter socializing, you need summer you need the whole season, and then it will kind of rebalance itself.
Yeah, it's almost like there's been the rhythm of life has been sort of messed up, and so maybe there will have to be a big jump in socializing, and they won't go back to normal. But it's a lot of unknowns, and we don't even know when this lockdown will actually finish. So I think that uncertainty probably makes people not necessarily want to, go on Instagram and social media and be just socialize in general.
I think maybe we had it was unbalanced to begin with. And I think at the start, maybe it felt good to have a break.
Oh, yeah.
And then now we've learned more things. People realize they don't have to necessarily be somewhere to do something. But we do recognize that being together in person definitely is the most valuable thing.
Absolutely. I think connecting and, that human contact, I think we definitely have not had that very, very much. And I think people are probably waking up to the idea that doing that is probably the way people find themselves to be most happy and have the most joy is when they're together.
Yeah.
Do you think that you've connected with your family a lot during lockdown?
So like Christmas, stayed for a few weeks. So things like that, it just made it a bit more special, I guess. Or you kind of just didn't take it for granted. Oh yeah, we're just going around for Christmas. Like, okay, you spend more time because there's less distractions as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that's quite good that has come from this is connecting with people from different places around the world and communicating with them. So sometimes I help out with this mental health group called Therapy, and we do online sessions for men. And we were doing them in person in London. Now people are calling in from like Canada, America, India, and different parts of the UK. And you're like, wow, okay, this is really nice because it's made that thing where like all these men are coming together to talk about these things, but from also their own different cultures. It's really cool. Like,
yeah, it's almost like technology is such a big enabler. Like it allows us to do so much and connect with so many different people. But maybe we have. But I do sometimes feel that people are not liking technology as much as they used to as well, and they just want to switch off and not connect as much. But maybe as I said, with human consciousness maybe changing slightly, the whole collective, should I say, the way we use technology will change. Maybe we'll use it in a better way. Maybe we're maturing, because even with like Instagram, for example, there is like that dopamine reward system where you kind of get really addicted to the feed. But maybe people are waking up to those types of processes and thinking, actually, I will use social media in a different way and connect, more through, like, as I said, webcasts and podcasts, or create these groups.
I think people should probably manage their social media more. Like if there's something you hate and it's coming to you, because most on social media things come to you.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe the problem. So you don't choose to necessarily see everything. And now there's this new term that I heard the other day. I don't think it's a new term, but I only heard it the other day, doom scrolling.
Oh, I haven't heard that before.
And I was like, that makes so much sense. It's basically you're just scrolling for the sake of scrolling. It's just like scrolling, and you're just like seeing things, and
and it never ends.
Yeah, and it's obviously having an impact depending on what you're looking at, and it's just like constantly. I'm like doom scrolling. I'm like, that sounds horrible.
Yeah. And I also find myself, watching. I always like the thought of watching older films and like being able to just sort of enjoy, something that was made 30 years ago and see what it was like. It was quite funny. I was working on my computer, and I was in a meeting with this guy who's some manager, and then my dad comes into the room, and I was on mute, and he was like, "Dude, you need to watch the Rocky, collection." So he just put all these DVDs in my room, and so I watched. I'm going to watch Rocky 3 tonight, but just I haven't had time really, and I felt really guilty to spend time to sit down and watch these things. But now I feel like I can actually really absorb it and enjoy it. Do you find yourself that you're doing something similar? You're maybe cooking or doing something slightly different to what you were doing before?
Yeah, so I think last Sunday, me and my wife, we watched like 3 movies and sat in front of the TV, and I was like, I never do this, and I was like, it's really relaxing. So it was. You don't
watch
good.
TV? Are you not a TV fan generally?
No, but I feel like I just wouldn't sit like the whole day to watch stuff, because I just like to be out, like doing stuff, meeting people, like or like going for a bike ride, or just that type of thing. But I think you do need to sit still and have those moments to just do nothing.
Do you think that I don't know if you're spiritual or religious, but do you feel like you've been sort of doing things like that recently, like doing more kind of spiritual type, work on yourself and reflecting?
I would say I used to probably do more. So I think because I like to be out, like I would go for rides, do more yoga. But I think actually other things, I think having with the book and stuff, I've kind of understand or even with the protests that's going on in Punjab, I feel like everyone's reconnected with their faith, because I think there is something quite powerful with what's happening. And then when you really think about it, you just think it could never have happened anywhere in the world as it is because of the faith. Like the faith has made it something else.
Do you think that what you're saying, that the religion, or the spirit of the religion itself allows people to have the strength to protest, or do you think that religion causes the conflict?
I think the religion has the true spirit of the religion has come through, because you have to do these acts, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it's I don't know if you obviously social media, a lot of people talking about farmers' protests, but you do feel something internally, and I don't know if this is like a community thing where there's something that you feel really connected to it.
I think it's a lot more powerful than people realize, and I think maybe I've said this to like other people that I know. I think because it's not in the English language, I think it's harder for people to understand. And I think it's harder for them to understand what these people are fighting, because in a way they're maybe a bit more advanced. They might not look advanced. So they really, like, to say that they're fighting propaganda on the internet, that's quite advanced. Like, they're aware of it and they're able to combat it. Whereas people here, I think they're falling into traps online, and they're being caught out and being manipulated. Maybe it might be from Russia rather than the Indian state. And I think I've realized these things are real. Like, it's just part of maintaining power, disrupting power. It's all gone online, and we're all kind of in this battle. And I think in India, they've kind of been able to do that online. And where else in the world could you just like serve people food? Like, you can never do that on Westminster Bridge. They'll get the army and they'll be a riot. Like, it just...
Yeah, and I think also with the farmers' protests, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of conflicts that are going on around the world, and really it's these basic human rights, these sort of things that are just so basic. Like, we don't even think about it in the UK because we're very lucky and privileged, but sometimes we get so stuck in our own ways, in our own life, that we forget about the bigger picture. And I think it's really, really annoying how there's even not just in what's going on in India, there is so many things that are going on in the world that is quite dark, but we just want to keep within ourselves and our community. And I'm trying to find ways of being better at understanding what's going on and trying to help where I can. But as you said about disinformation, it's so difficult to even do that as well, because you don't know what information you're getting.
Because I think there's that thing, you look within yourself, you're like, this is a hard situation. And I think our situation is hard in its own merit. But then you think you see people in other countries just start not wearing a mask, but then you think they're probably thinking they're going to die anyway if a bomb lands on their head. They probably don't have food anyway. So I'm like, why am I going to put them under the same... I don't understand what their life is like. Like, they have so many different pressures and threats, immediate threats.
Exactly. And that's one takeaway that I've got from talking to you, that actually... Because I take pictures quite a lot. I love photography, but I don't really think about it that much. But I realize now that actually that as an art form has so much power. Maybe I should use that, to think about the why sometimes. Like, maybe, try to tell a story that helps people to understand a particular community and what they're going through. I think, yes, it's nice to play guitar, for example, and not necessarily think about the process, but sometimes having a reason for doing something can spur you on.
Yeah, and I think it is like, you can't say to everyone they have to do that, but I guess your why is unique to you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, your why could be because you just want to have fun and enjoy yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be for a social cause. But but thinking about the reasons why you're doing it is sometimes helpful, but sometimes can be a disabler. Because I know you're talking about Zar contacting you about maybe doing some photography work. He's a DJ and music maker. But he talks about how he likes to be in the flow of creating. He doesn't want to think about the process too much. In fact, he doesn't like analyzing it. So maybe maybe it's my fault. I'm just, who I am. I'm can be quite analytical and like to think about these things a little bit too much.
I think if you're trying to be a perfectionist, there's no like I've realized from other people there's no end to being a perfectionist because it doesn't end.
Yeah, exactly, and it's so interesting because by day I'm a project manager, and they have this. I don't know, bore you or all these project management concepts, but they talk about you should do something, create it, and then lessons learned. Like you should learn from it rather than actually keep analyzing what you're doing now and not actually produce anything. You should just create something and then maybe think about it. But I sometimes get stuck in the analyzing what I'm doing before actually creating something. Do you ever find yourself doing that?
I think that is quite a common thing that you're saying, that people just feel like they're stuck. I think it's a journey. I've realized just that go with it, and sometimes something wrong will happen, or it will put you back a step. But once you solve it, you learn from it, and then you can move forward much faster.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to just sort of think afterwards. Is that what you mean?
You have to be brave, and I think there's that thing of, oh yeah, I won't do it, but then you'll have in the back of your mind, what was I scared of? So I think on a more like broader level, it's just about confronting fear. It's all about confronting fear on a smaller level. Like it could be the smallest thing, like, oh, why am I not going to do it? Why am I scared? For what? But then obviously, if you're like, it's going to cost me £10,000, I'm not going to. You just weigh it up.
Yeah. I think you need to. Yeah, you've got to be courageous to make art as well sometimes, and not. Yeah, not because there's so many things that can go wrong. And you're talking about how you. It was quite funny. You were talking about how you had loads of books come to you, and you're like, oh, I need to sell these now. And to me, I could think, oh, I'll be so scared that I got all these books now. What am I going to do? I have to try and sell them. I don't know if you ever had a panic sort of situation where you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or did you were like, okay, I know I'm going to sell these.
I think it's stressful because if the first time, especially when you do something, you're going into the unknown.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't know where I'm going, but I just thought to myself, one thing I do know is I have to do something. That's all I knew. I was like, if I don't do anything, nothing's going to change. Yeah. I guess that's, yeah. And then from that, I was like, okay, I'm so glad I done that. Some things I done, I'm like, maybe spent too much time and nothing came from it. But at least I know that it doesn't really work, or it has a different value to it.
So you learned, even though it didn't work, you learned something from it.
Yeah, like I was in a magazine. Like I didn't give a shit I was in that magazine. It sounds so bad, but it looked great for recognition. Like the magazine didn't bring me anything, but to the outside, it looks great. So you kind of share that.
Yeah.
But something else is probably a lot more valuable.
So do you think that you're going to do things different in your next project if you ever do one in terms of a new book?
I think I know. I just have an understanding. I've been through the cycle once, so in a way, it's a bit easier. Yeah, there'll be slightly different challenges, but it does make it easier, and there'll be new things to look forward to. But something I can relate to, like the music thing, and your friend that we were just speaking about. So I thought, okay, wow, he does electronic. Like you guys do like stuff in a band, but there's also that electronic element. And then another artist approached me, and she's making this music, and obviously she wants to reach a different audience. So I just said, but why don't you do a remix of this song? This is what people used to do in the 90s or early 2000s. But sometimes the remix was bigger than the actual song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, it was probably 20,000 people in Ibiza dancing to your tune, and you're sitting at home and no one's dancing to the original. But at least it's out there.
It's like Brimful of Asher, right?
Yeah. And it's just like, try and reach out. If you want different audiences, that's where then you have to get out of, like, you're either really, really great and your music's so great that it will reach people, which great music does. Otherwise, you just have to maybe try different avenues.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I sometimes feel like some people are a little bit ashamed of their culture. They don't necessarily want to talk about it or embrace it. But there's a lot of new artists now that are sort of bringing in themes from Punjab and kind of fusing that into kind of modern Western music. Do you think there's been a shift there? Do you think that the new generation are more liking the fusion?
So I personally think there's a few things that can happen from this. I feel like if someone's not really connected to their cultural identity, I think that's okay. I think we need to make it okay for them to be like, yo, I actually don't care about being Punjabi. I have no relation to it. My family's from like Kenya. I don't really know about Sikhi. I'm just British. I feel like if those people want to say that, they should be allowed. I feel like all like let them go and like do their thing because I feel like they have every right to. And obviously now we're getting more people that are like, say, for example, Steel Bangles. Obviously, his dad's Punjabi. He does Punjabi stuff, but now he's showing it more. So he's always had it. So it's not something that he's trying to sell. It's who he is. So we're getting a lot more of the authentic thing rather than, oh, yeah, my parents are brown. I'm going to wear a sari or I'm going to do some Indian thing.
Like, I 100% agree. You know, I just sometimes think that there is scrutiny, though. People do scrutinize and they worry about people's opinion. But I think what you're saying is totally correct. Like, you should just be totally authentic and just be who you are and not be so fearful in what people think of you.
I think the thing about scrutiny is difficult because people are doing things. They think they're doing something, but they don't necessarily realize what they're putting out, if that makes sense. So what I've realized through my journey of photographing people in our community is some of the people that probably practice Sikhi a lot more, they might be seen as extreme. But when I've got to know more people and I'm like, they're just practicing what they believe. And then from the outside, they're seen as extreme and they kind of feel that. They feel that. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting.
It's a stereotype, isn't it? People stereotype it's a human thing. People, it's so easy to stereotype people. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then it's like a vice versa thing. Like people that are a bit more liberal, they kind of like have these judgments because they are also being judged as well. So it's just that creates this space of like people not like understanding each other or trusting each other. And I think those are the things we need to break down. And some people just need to be like, yeah, you know what? I don't actually understand that of who I am. So instead of just profiting from the symbolism of that or that identity, just be a bit more honest. But I think that's a journey for each individual. You're going to get that conflict.
Do you also think? Sorry, I'm asking so many questions now, and it's getting.
No, you tell me your answers as well. So feel free.
No, I mean one thing that I wanted to ask you about. I'm just thinking now was, you know, obviously you're well connected, and you know you work with many people in UK. But do you think there's a disconnect between Punjabis in India and here? Like, can they still resonate with what you're working on, or do you think there is still a bit of a separation in culture?
So this is something a bit more personal that I thought about. I always found it easier to maybe relate to upper people whose parents are maybe born in a different country that weren't born here. I just feel like we have more of something more relatable, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's like, oh yeah, our parents are similar, or there's like some connection. There's like the connection still there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's why I made the book as well,
because so you wanted to represent that. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I've realized that some people they might call themselves Punjabi, but they don't know where they've come from, or that connection's physically just is done. Like, so it's just like it's just an access or a route. Oh yeah, this is my people. This is where I come from. If that's what you want, if that's what you're looking for, there's now an option to do that.
And you don't think that was there before? You think there's a big separation there?
Because I think I wanted to see what I saw. Like, so I know I was able to identify it. Because you watch the movies, you're like, the movies are cool, but they're not really.
They're not representing that region and people.
No. And I still think there's so much more to tell and show, because even though I've done that, I still don't know what it's like to live there. Like, there's still that, like, we don't understand that. There's so much more that can be told from people's stories, I guess.
Is that one of your desires? So when lockdown finishes one day, if it ever does, do you want to go back, or do you want to go to India and live there for a while and really kind of settle in and understand what's going on?
Maybe if I base it on what I say, maybe give somebody else the opportunity. or support somebody else or work with somebody else to do that.
So you're saying there is a story that needs to be heard and understood and told, and you're sort of you think somebody should do that. They should go out there and tell that story.
Yeah, because then I feel like I can't tell that story. Probably have to be honest and say I can tell a story. Can I tell that particular story? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of feel like with you, you're reviving photography as well as an art form, because I feel like it's dying to a certain degree. People can take, as I said, take pictures with their phones, and not necessarily think about the pictures as much. Just want to take a selfie. But I feel like you put a lot of meaning in your pictures. You think that you're using it as a way of telling a story.
Do you know what? I'll probably have to ask you. Like, could you maybe tell me an example? Because then maybe I could, or like if you see an example of a picture on Instagram or something of where you feel that. Just because I'm thinking like, which one? Yeah, because.
Well, so I haven't got your book yet. I've seen your a lot of your advertising on it, but I think just when you're talking about how you take pictures of Punjabis that really like BMWs and they want to show it off, actually there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of meaning behind that. What does it mean to have a BMW, and what does it represent to those people? I would. I've got friends that like those kind of cars, and I don't think I thought about it too much. But I think somebody telling that story allows me to really think, oh, actually, that is something quite meaningful. There is something behind that. So it's just things like that, really. I think just even though they're quite small, they shift my perspective a little bit and actually say, oh, that is quite profound. Maybe you don't think about it. Maybe it's a good thing you don't think about it, and you've got people like me that overthink these things.
No, I think what you're saying, that is true. So like, I'm seeing like they have this passion for this thing. Like they really they'll say, oh, what do you think of this car? I'm like, I ain't got a clue what you're talking about. Like, I don't know the car model. Now I know them, the models. But it's like they actually love what they do. Like they all love dub reggae. Like they all love dub reggae because they were born in Southall. Like it's like the culture. Like you all have a sound system. They all go out to like the nights. It's really relaxed and everyone's super lovely. And it's just like, okay, that comes across in the pictures because of who they are.
Yeah, and one other thing which I really like, and I'm sorry, I'm fanning out a little bit on what I like about your art, but you were talking about earlier about how with Indians, they want to be represented to look quite fair and stuff. But I feel like with your pictures, you don't necessarily edit them like that. You just, that is who they are. You embrace it, that, and it's beautiful in who they are. And I think simple things like that, have a lot of big meaning behind it. And they are quite political as well, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think when there's certain projects where I try to include other people, like we done one with the young women in Southall wearing like jackets and Punjabi suits. I just said, look, as long as whoever can get involved, as long as you feel comfortable in front of the camera, like you don't have to be a model. As long as you've got a few different people that look a bit different, like let's tell the story, because then it makes it more relatable. And then with the guys, we went to like Trafalgar Square. They were kurta pajama with like the jacket, with little jackets and trainers. And it was like, these people just look like me. One's got bug on, one doesn't. One's got long hair, one's got tattoos. Like it's just like fun.
Exactly. And I think maybe it's a mindset of being a photographer, or just why people are interested in photography. I feel like for myself, I'm very observant. I like to sort of, sometimes it's quite not necessarily a good thing, but in groups I can be a little bit quiet and want to just observe and see what's actually going on, rather than being the loudmouth in the whole group. But I think there's so many different stories to tell. It's quite refreshing that someone's doing it. But yeah, I think it'd be nice to, when lockdown is over, to tell those stories and go to different places within even the UK itself and explore the community and what they're doing. And not necessarily Punjabis as well, like just general community. And London is so diverse and there's so much going on. And I kind of miss that sometimes, being able to go into the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, I follow other people that are capturing like things through their lens, and like of their community, and it's just like you just appreciate it, and you can still relate to it. I feel like so. There's a lot to tell.
Exactly, and the human story is, it's universal, right? No matter what culture it is, it's almost like, I don't know. I'm going to bore you a lot now about this book that I'm reading called. It's by Robert Greene, called
Robert Greene.
Yeah,
the red cover.
No, I don't know if it is Robert Greene actually, but it's basically about the hero's journey. And it's about it's kind of one of those film books, like one of the initial books that you read in film studies, and it talks about how a lot of stories and myths that have a very similar theme to it. There's somebody that goes into the unknown and comes back revived, and they learnt lots of different things, and maybe they will go into the chaos. So it starts some order and then goes into the chaos, but within that chaos they probably don't know what they want to do. They go to something which is not very not the right thing to do, and then they actually find, I've learned I need to do this, and they go and actually do that, and they come back into the order very much learnt and capable. And I think any human culture, any society has a very similar theme to it, and I think maybe storytelling, or in any way, film to photography, allows you to just to navigate within that circle.
Yeah. I think, it is quite hard to know what you're putting out and how it's being perceived as well.
Exactly. Or maybe you shouldn't use me as a way to understand how your art's being perceived, because I'm not probably not the best demographic to analyze that. But I guess for me, I like to analyze these kind of things, but maybe not everyone does that. But I think what you're doing is incredible, and keep doing it. And maybe don't overthink it like I am, because it might hinder your growth. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. You obviously put your links below, so send me your links, and please come on again, man. If you haven't been bored to death by talking to me, I hope that you come back on.
No, thank you for having me on. Always appreciate it. Great questions. I'm definitely going to follow what you guys do, follow the show and the music. So yeah, this is just the beginning of our relationship.
Perfect. Are you going to come back on? Are you going to want to be on the RoRoShow again?
I'm more than happy, as long as I feel like I can contribute or add something. Yeah, I'm definitely down.
Of course, man. Of course, it's all about bringing people together as well. So maybe we'll be other people on the show as well. We can talk about the other things rather than just your work.
Yeah, just do a little panel discussion or a review or something like that.
Yeah, critique people my pictures and tell me how terrible I am. All right, take care, man. I'll catch you later.
Thank you very much. See you later. Bye.
See ya. Bye.